What? I'm artistically frustrated.
All right, in all seriousness, you guys have caught me doing much worse, right? I mean, yeah, Libby agrees. Okay. Have you ever had this situation where a pen has been ruined? And when I mean ruined, I mean like it just gets gunked up, it's clogged, it's not coming out. It just stopped working on you. Technical pens, fountain pens, even sometimes dip pens can give you this trouble. I was kind of introduced to the fountain pen because this isn't really a big item that Jerry's carries until recently when I started getting into the whole urban sketching movement because it's just so darn sexy, Will. It looks so cool. It's so beautiful. They go on location and they do these sketches. And when you look at their gear, their pack, they always have fountain pens. And if you've ever worked with a fountain pen, you know that it makes a line that a felt tip pen or a regular pen just can't. You can change line weight. It makes really smooth marks. It glides across the paper like ice. And a lot of times what these urban sketchers are going to do is they, put their ink down, at least that's what it looks like, and then they go ahead and they take their watercolors out and they start filling in the little shapes and buildings and people and all that good stuff. But when I did it, this happened. Look at that. Look at that. It's muddy. I was confused. I was like, well, I'm using so what did I do? Well, we sell inks. I went to our store and I got some ink. Got myself some acrylic-based ink because I know from experience that acrylic dries permanently. And I filled up one of my pens with the acrylic ink and I went out and for 3 or 4 days I made awesome little drawings. And then the pen died and I didn't know why. I didn't know why my pen died. So I went back to the store. I bought another pen. Okay, I'm very good for the pen industry. And I got pigmented-based inks. Okay? Put that in there. Same thing happened. 4 days go by, it died on me. It just wouldn't work. It started to dawn on me that it might be the ink. It wasn't me, it was the ink. Okay? So I did a lot of research and I wanted to share that research with you because it's important that if you want to use pens for your art, that you understand the appropriate way to use the right ink for the art you're doing and how to take care of these pens because these pens can get expensive. They can. There's Mont Blanc in there. So when it comes to pens, one of the things I like to say is 60% of the time they work 100% of the time. But I'm going to try to get you there where 100% of the time what your pen's going to be doing. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about today. What is going on inside your pen? Now this pen is a good example because it's kind of see-through. What happens is if you put it in ink, okay, now we can talk about inks. Okay, you've got like pigmented inks, which are basically pigments suspended in a alcohol-based solution, okay? Then you've got acrylic-based inks, which are pigments in acrylic polymer that are just thinned down to ink. You've got shellac inks, which is basically another form of like a pigment that can gunk up on you. All these things, when I say pigment, shellac, all these things, they gunk up on you. So the type of ink you need is a dye, not a solution. You need a dye where there isn't pigments. And if you watched What Are Pigments? FAQ. Thank you for those that watched. For those of you that didn't, you're missing out because that's going to be a little segue. Okay, stop doing this. It's important that you understand that the dye-based ink will be water soluble, okay, and stay water soluble. It won't dry permanent, which means you're going to get this, but it won't clog up your pens the way those pigmented inks will. So what is happening is, and you can kind of see here, you've got in this reservoir this little plunger, so you would put this in the ink, pull it back, and then if you let it dry, it backs up. You back up your pipes. The bottom line is, you back up your pipes. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? I mean, that's the moral of that story. You have to make sure that you have to continually use a pen if you are going to be using inks that dry permanent. Now, there are some confusing things out there to me, like the fact that like a technical pen, do I have a technical pen? A technical pen comes with usually India ink. Now, India ink is another ink that dries permanent, but that's one of those reasons that technical pens get a bad rap because people are like, they're so difficult to work with. And for whatever reason, they come with a permanent ink. So what is a girl to do? Well, the most important thing to do is understand that ink flow. So if you know that you are not going to be using that pen for a couple of days, you got to clean it out. You just got to clean it out. And if that sounds like a lot of work to you, I'm there with you. I get that. You can switch to a waterproof pen because with technical pens, usually if you hold them upright, does the same thing. That's important. Here's the other thing that's kind of been bothering me about inks. It seems like it's okay to lie, like flat out lie. Like I'm not going to call it any particular ink, but I will read that this is a waterproof, non-clogging ink. Bull. It's absolute bull. It is definitely not going to be one or the other. It seems to be that they misinterpret waterproof or semi-waterproof. What's the term I'm looking for? Water resistant. Yes, water resistant. Exactly. So let's just talk about actual application because it can get very confusing and very convoluted. When it comes to taking a bag with you or using a pen that you know that you're not going to want to clean or use for a while, you need to stick with those dye-based, any ink that says non-waterproof. If it says pigmented ink, acrylic, can't use those. Those will clog it up on you. If you want to do art with that, that's fine. If you hit it with water, just know what to expect. Now, a lot of people, what I've seen is they do this like chromatic art. They'll use the fact that it's water soluble. So, instead of doing a bunch of color, they might, wasn't prepared to do art. They might want to do their cityscape there and they know that it's water soluble, so they're going to go right into it and use that as part of their design, almost like a watercolor pencil, If you also don't want to deal with the whole pen thing, you can use waterproof technical pens, other pens that are waterproof. That way you can still get the lines and, go on location. Now, what have I done? Because I want the best of both worlds. I want everything. I want it all. What I do is I carry a couple of things with me, all right? Now, the first thing I do is I bring the ink that I'm going to use separate from the pen, okay? Because if I do wind up using a pigmented ink in a pen, I know that I have a very short window. So I want to fill it on location, and then when I get home, it'll be fine. By the time I get home, I can clean it out. Now, if you live in a very, very dry environment, maybe you don't have as much time, but I think that in a day, you'll be okay. Hey, that rhymes. So usually what I do is I have one pen like this. This is an Ahab pen. They kind of have an odor to it. They kind of stink. Smell the pen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'll usually take one of these bad boys, okay, and I'll fill this with a non-pigmented ink because I like to have options. And then usually what I'll do is I'll bring two different nibs for dipping in ink, okay? And, I have little acronyms in my head, so I remember two in the ink and one that stinks. So this is how I remember things, okay? Okay, all right. It's a real shocker. I like to bring a couple of different nibs with me so I have different line weight options. And also that, pen, whether it's, this one that stinks or, one that is, any pen will work. Again, if it doesn't have that waterproof ink in it, it can sit for a while. Now this pen actually, I tested this the other day. This pen had been kind of sitting stagnant for about 3 or 4 weeks. And when I went to put it on the paper, I got that, no line coming out. So just for experimentsies, pretensies, I don't know what I was doing. I just kind of just touched it in the water here, and it popped right back to life because this ink does not dry waterproof. It's sort of like like if it does dry, it dries sort of more like a watercolor pan, which is completely water soluble. So as soon as it touches that water, it comes back to life. Isn't that nice? It's like self-reviving. So understanding a couple different things about ink is important. For example, there are going to be tons of different black inks on the market. Are they waterproof? Are they not waterproof? Another thing that people don't always think of is drying time. There are some inks. So this is actually interesting. This is a company called Noodlers Ink. Again, this is not something we sell. They actually, this is brilliant. This is a non-clogging bulletproof, they call it. They don't say waterproof. Bulletproof ink. Now in the copy they'll say waterproof, but that's a lie. It's bulletproof. This is sort of urban artist. It's not a real thing. What does that mean? That means that when I use this ink, what I find is when I put watercolor over it, it will bleed, but the original line, sort of like you see here, still shows up. So it's sort of like it won't all wash away. So in case you were actually like, maybe this isn't like for art, but if you're like writing a letter and it gets soaked in the rain, it won't just wash away. You can still read it. It's bulletproof, but it ain't waterproof. It's just one of those marketing things. The other thing that I found is that with certain inks, especially this ink, it takes forever to dry. Yeah, I was just like, if I was to pull out a line of, this Lucas ink here and then a line of this, it would take literally minutes longer for this to dry, which I know, you might be laughing at minutes, but when you're on location, that can feel like an eternity. Personally, for me, I can't guarantee that every pigmented ink and every acrylic ink, if you use it in a fountain pen or Technicolor pen, that it will flow well. I will tell you that from my experience, the best working one was this Lucas stuff, the Illucolor. This stuff, again, it will ruin your pen if you leave it. You have to clean it. Just rinse it out. It's not a big deal. Okay, just clean that thing out. But this makes a very, very nice dark mark that's permanent, that will not come up with watercolor. And if you clean your pen after a couple days, it's fine. The other thing is, if you use your pens consistently, you might get away with being able to keep your pens from cleaning them for a couple weeks. Like if you use your pen enough where you fill that reservoir up and then within a week or two it's empty because you've used it all, you might not have to clean them at all, very little, if you're in it, okay? From what I've been doing, I wouldn't go through all this effort. I could just grab one of these, pre-made pens. They are worth the effort, okay, despite the smell. They are worth the effort because they do create, this feeling of freedom when I can change the line weight, when I can make different marks, when I can be more expressive in my movement. I mean, that's kind of how the creative juices all flow. And also, don't be afraid to experiment with inks that are pre-colored. Like we've got, there's blue. Now this is colored blue ink. So, all kinds of different options. And because you're using a refillable pen, you can use anything. You don't have to just stick with what's already built in there. So if you've ruined pens before, the pen is most likely not the culprit. It is the ink. So having a dye-based ink, it's not going to be waterproof, but there's no pigments in it to gunk it up, okay? Again, watch that FAQ on pigments, what are they? I talk about this in depth, and I actually do a very, very good example that leads to terror. And anything that's pigmented, okay, so whether it's actual pigments or shellacs or India ink, which has like soot in it, all these things can dry and gunk up. Now, if you do have that happen, okay, before you toss the pen away or the nib, a lot of times you can clean it out. I have filled, for example, this pen with a pigmented ink because I experimented and it died on me. Now, a lot of times pens will, first of all, come apart. You can pull out all the bits and clean them pretty easily. But also, if it happens, try soaking it, warm water for a day, and then, try getting some water to flow through it. There are, pen cleaning solutions you can try as well. But at the end of the day, it's best to avoid these things altogether if you can. So dip pens are great for if you are worried about not wanting to go into heavy cleaning, because you still need to, you gotta wipe your tip there, Will. You gotta wipe the nib there with a dip pen. But this is a really great way where you can take literally this bottle, this pen, and a rag, and just go on location. I'm gonna make a mess whatever I do here, and just be able to make those lines as you go. Gotta know where my ink level is. And it just flows so nice. And then when you're done, just wipe it up, and when you get home, just give it a quick, that's basically all it needs, as long as you don't let it sit there and dry for days. So I've got ink on me now, which means that we've got a time limit before I explode. But I hope that this helps. I gotta clean this. We have to stop. I have to clean this. So have you had any cleaning woes or issues in the past using fountain pens, technical pens, dip pens? Share them below, especially if you have a home remedy or solution that you found works for you in the event that your pen's been kind of clogged up, backed up. We backed up the pipes. It's not a good thing. You got to let it loose. You got to let it fly. If you don't let it fly, the pipes get backed up. You ruin pens. What have you done to help solve that? Right? That's what I want people to know. Your home remedies, your ways that you've maybe salvaged a pen. If you think that this is something that you want to try, have you ever used a dip pen or a fountain pen? I love it. As much as I had to make a video for it, they are really fun to use, despite the fact that this one has an odor to it. So please remember to clean your nibs, please remember to clean your pens, and please remember to clean me on Instagram at Mike Not Jerry, where I continue to add things that need cleaning up. Oh wow, that was nice and tight. I like it. Also, don't forget to check out our frequently asked artist questions. We've got one series that I'm working on pigments right now that we'll be wrapping up. I'm going to have more frequently asked artist questions down the road. We've got our Will in Progress series, which I'm very proud of. Will's in progress. I'm very proud of him. Very proud of him. And Olivia and him are also working on art for relaxation. We've got all kinds of stuff we're working on. We're always working here on something. We try our best, and that is the message. That's right. Should have never done this. It's everywhere. Yeah. Okay. That should be good enough. Probably not. Okay. Here we go.